happening now that didn't happen in my lifetime before and that I needed to study. And that was an enormous amount of creation of debt and the monetization of that in a financial piece. The second is the internal conflict, populism of the right and the left, and with wealth gaps and so on, that I like to measure things, that you'd have to go back to 1900 to see those degrees of conflict, which I think are a threat to our system and a democracy and could produce a civil war type of situation. Right. And third, the rise of a great power to challenge an existing great power in the existing world order. Now those three things in their degrees individually, but also collectively, last time they happened was 1930 to 45 period. And so what I needed to do was to understand those patterns and those things, and I took it into it. And so what I'm hoping to show is simply the mechanics of it in a lot of, and then explain why it appears that we are at an important juncture. Now, what we do at that juncture, so yes, it's measured, and there are, the United States is in relative to decline by measures, which are measured, and China has been rising, and that's an issue, but that doesn't create necessarily a destiny, it creates a...
So how are we going to pay off that debt, by the way?
Well...
inflation is the only way?
In the end, it's always print the money. Okay. You know, it's always print the money, because you see, one man's debts are another man's assets. And so if you're holding a bond and you receive you don't get compensated for inflation. Let's say people think cash is a low risk investment. Well, they're earning no interest. And when you have a 7% or a 5% inflation, you lose 5% of your buying power. Or if you're owning a bond, you have the same thing. And so what happens is not only is there the debt that is coming from the new debt created to run the deficits, but there become sellers of that debt because the owner, as an asset, it's not a good asset. And then there's so much selling. And what that means is that you either have to, interest rates have got to go up, and then that grinds things down to a close, or what they do is they have to print money. And so the history of all of these cycles is that the coffers are empty because you can't continue to spend more than you earn and give it to somebody, expect them to like it. And then you devalue it, and that becomes the cycle. And so you see the classic cycle of the ingredient is the cycle I'm talking about in terms of supply, demand, and the